I didn't know who Jim Gilliam was.
Yeah.
And this is a fascinating story. By the way, this book is #1 on Amazon in the new release baseball history category. So it's #1 on Amazon. You can find it. Just search Jim Gilliam, The Forgotten Dodger. But this, I mean, everybody thinks of Jackie Robinson, but Jim Gilliam, just based on the forward and the description of the book, why is this guy not in the Hall of Fame?
That's a good question. I don't know that he actually had a Hall of Fame career, but the thing is, he never got one single Hall of Fame vote. And, Hall of Fame voters are ridiculous.
Idiots.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't vote for Ichiro? That's just ridiculous, whoever the one person is that didn't vote for Ichiro recently. But he played 13 seasons with the Los Angeles and Brooklyn Dodgers. He played 4 years in the Negro Leagues prior to that. And in between there, he had 2 years in the Dodgers minor league system, ostensibly because the Dodgers already had 3 or 4 black players on their roster and didn't want to get to a point where they would have 4 or 5 black players in the starting lineup. They would eventually do that in 1954, where they would field 5 black players in a starting line. But, he bounced around. He played second base. He played third base. He played the outfield. He was a part of 7 World Series teams for the Dodgers franchise. He won 4 World Series rings, played in all 4 of those. Nobody else can say that. Sandy Koufax was on the roster for 4, but didn't play in the 1955 series. Johnny Padres was on the roster for 4, but didn't play in the 65 series. Gilliam's the only person in Dodger history to do that. He was the 1953 Rookie of the Year. He walked 2.5 times more than he struck out. He hit behind Maury Wills to allow Wills to steal 100 and some odd bases in 1962. He got MVP votes in 1965 in his age 36 season. He finished 30th in the MVP voting that year. And in a lot, he's forgotten in a sense. Maybe he's not forgotten. I've heard from a lot of Dodger fans on Facebook and elsewhere that are part of diehard Brooklyn Dodger groups that say, oh, we never forgot him, and his name is Junior because that was his nickname, not Jim. We never forgot him. He's certainly overlooked as a Dodger. His legacy is certainly overlooked. And he played with a lot of titans of baseball. You mentioned Jackie Robinson, Sandy Koufax, Duke Snider, Pee Wee Reese, Roy Campanella. The list goes on.
So, Ross, you may not know this, but did I see this right, Steve, that he hit the last home run at Ebbets Field and then hit the first home run at the 2 stadiums the Dodgers played in L.A.?
He scored the last run at Ebbets Field.
Okay.
Yeah. But he hit the first home run in both the first Dodger home run, that is, not the first home run altogether, but the first one for the Dodgers franchise in both the Memorial Coliseum and the Dodger Stadium. And what's unique about that is that over his career, he was not a home run hitter, but he is the only, this is my favorite statistic about him. He is the only player in baseball history to hit a home run in the Negro Leagues East-West All-Star Game and the Major League Baseball All-Star Game.
This is incredible. So, first of all, I will defend you for calling him the Forgotten Dodger. I'd never heard this name, and if I had certainly forgotten it. Why? First, let's start with that. Why is he not as well known as a lot of Dodger fans know him? I mean, I found out just from the quick Google searches that I did after seeing the forward of your book, he and Fernando Valenzuela, is this true? They're the only 2 Dodgers with their numbers retired, Travis, that aren't in the Hall of Fame.
Really? Correct. Yep.
So why don't we know this guy?
Yeah, he passed away in 1978 on the eve of, or the end of the season in September. He was coaching first base for the Dodgers. Another first, he was the first black to serve as a base coach in Major League Baseball. The first on-field coach that was black. Buck O'Neill, Gene Baker, they were coaches, but they were in the bench. They retired his number right away. And so people that have been going to Dodger Stadium over the years will see the number 19 up on the side of the facade of the Dodger Stadium, or they'll see the 19 statue out in the parking lot. And that
he's got a statue.
Yeah. He's got a park named after him in Los Angeles, Jim Gilliam Recreational Park in the Baldwin Hills area of Los Angeles.
Travis, did you know this name?
No, had no clue. Thanks to Steve Dittmore, PhD, we do now.
Yeah, so it's a good question. Why is he forgotten? I think of a certain generation, he's not. But I think for today's modern fan, yes, we all know Fernando Valenzuela. Certainly his influence on the Mexican Americans in Los Angeles is enormous. Fernando passed away this past year, so there was a big thing about that. But for the longest time, Gilliam was the only one to have his number retired that wasn't in the Hall of Fame. And people were critical of the Dodgers. Not that they had retired Gilliam's number, but they hadn't retired Fernando's number. They hadn't retired Gil Hodges' number at 14 until Hodges was elected to the Hall of Fame. So, people, I don't think, deliberately ignore his career. They just don't seek out the information. And, I just hope that at some point in time, he gets consideration for a Hall. I mean, I've been fortunate and gratified that so many people in the baseball community have reacted positively to this, and that there's a number of folks that study the game that recognize, he's a pretty influential person. And then you start digging into some of the sociological and kind of racial issues that were there. He didn't deserve to spend 2 years in the minors. The Dodgers didn't. Major League Baseball wasn't totally integrated. The Boston Red Sox don't integrate until the end of the 1950s when Pumpsie Green becomes their first black player. The Dodgers, by that point in time, had a dozen different black players on their roster. But just getting to that point of saying, we're going to have more blacks than whites, or we're going to start 4 of them in the lineup. We're going to basically move one white player to the bench to replace him with a better player. Let's, forget about the color. The fact is, Gilliam was a better player than the bench players they had in 51 and 52, but they weren't ready to have him on the roster.
Wow.
What inspired you to write it? Just your Dodger fandom or the story itself?
Yeah, I think my Dodger fandom. I was born in Los Angeles, grew up there until first grade, so I knew of Gilliam as a coach. I certainly remember the 1978 World Series when they had the 19 on their armbands. And as I got older and as I studied more about baseball, I became really a student of the Negro Leagues and a fan of that. And his story was one that hadn't been told, and that bridge kind of both the segregated part of baseball to the integrated part. He bridged Brooklyn and Los Angeles, as you pointed out. He was influential in both of those cities. I just thought he would be an interesting subject.
So he was a first base coach. He'd been with the Dodgers. I mean, Travis, as a player, he became a player coach, and then he just stayed with that organization. He died in September of 78. So that would have been in middle of September too, Travis, September 15th.
No, so he was stricken with a brain hemorrhage in middle of September, was in a coma, and died 2 days before the 1978 World Series.
So really fresh. I thought they had a couple weeks as I was reading the.
No, in fact, Game 2, his funeral took place the morning of Game 2 in Los Angeles. It just so happened that
and he was their first base coach.
Yes.
Do you remember that? That was the year I was born. You guys are significantly older than me, if you could tell.
And they played the Yankees in 78, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Reverend Jesse Jackson delivered his eulogy at the Baptist Church in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Wow.
I have a copy of eBay is great for doing archival research. Somebody at one point in time had a copy of the funeral program from his service, which I quickly snapped up because it had all the lists of all the pallbearers and all the speakers and all that sort of stuff. And I would never have known how to track all that information down.
Unbelievable.
I assume Jackie Robinson was one of the speakers, or
well, Robinson passed away in 72.
Oh, really?
And Gilliam was a pallbearer in Jackie E. Robinson's funeral because they were roommates together in 1953.
Man, I was thinking Jackie was alive into the 80s for some reason.
Nope.
Did you not see the movie?
No, if I did, I forgot that part of it, obviously.
So, besides Amazon, is this? Can you get this? Is it a Kindle? Is it a?
Yeah.
It's a Kindle. Is it? You got hardbacks and all that stuff.
We just went with paperback. It's published by August Publications. Just went paperback. It's also available in ebook. So Kindle, Nook, Kubo, whatever your Apple eBooks, whatever your preferred e-reader is, available through Barnes and Noble, Powell's Bookshop, Amazon. I saw actually it was even available through a Walmart link. All the places you can order it direct from the publisher.
Hey, you've made it big when you made it to Walmart.
Yeah, I didn't know how I felt about that.
Come on, you worked in Fayetteville for so long.
That's part of it, right? I mean, in Northwest Arkansas, it's either the University of Arkansas or it's Walmart. So, yeah.
Oh, good stuff. I mean, this is. I'm happy for you to write the book. And I don't think you need to be a Dodger fan to appreciate this, right? I mean, it's for baseball lovers.
I hope not, because I think, again, his story cuts across many decades. I mean, we didn't talk about some of this, but he played with the giants of the Negro Leagues, people like Josh Gibson, and he played against Satchel Paige and Buck Leonard and Cool Papa Bell. And he also played then alongside the contemporaries, the Hank Aaron's, the Willie Mays, Ernie Banks. They were all friends. They all got along. They barnstormed together. There was a barnstorming team after the 1955 World Series of black players that literally had all those guys I mentioned: Mays, Aaron, Banks, Jim Gilliam at second base. I mean, they didn't lose, of course, because that's just a phenomenal lineup.
It's better than most lineups in Major League Baseball today.
It's better than most all-star. I mean, dude, That's not an all-star. That's a Hall of Fame lineup.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. I'm so glad. Travis, thanks so much for and also, Dr. Dittmore, you're also an inspiration, because to know that a friend of Travis's can have such success gives me hope that someday I too can climb out of this dark hole.